Is my bonsai dying? This is one of the most common questions that I get asked by new bonsai growers. It can be really hard to tell if your tree is dead or alive because many people think that just because it doesn't have leaves, then it must be dead. This isn't always true. Even though some trees lose their leaves in the fall and winter, they still may be alive. Today, we're going to look at 3 simple ways that you can tell if your bonsai is dead or alive. So let's get started. The first method is what I like to call the scratch test. This is the easiest and most reliable way to find out if your bonsai is dead. All you need to do is take a sharp blade or pruners and gently scrape off some of the bark on a leafless branch. If you see green underneath, then this means your branch is alive. The green color comes from chlorophyll, which is what gives plants their green color. Chlorophyll is only produced in living cells, so if you see green, then this means there are living cells beneath the bark and your branch is alive. However, if the area underneath the bark is dry and there is no green color, then unfortunately this branch is dead. And even though it might be possible to graft a branch and bring it back to life in some situations, this isn't always the case. So if you have dead branches, then you need to remove them immediately so that they don't infect the rest of the tree. The easiest way to do this is to use a sharp blade or pruners and disinfect them before making your cuts. By disinfecting your tools, you'll stop the spread of any disease from the dead branches to the healthy parts of the tree. The second method is the water test. This is a great way to find out if your entire tree is dead or alive. Take your tree out of its pot and gently brush off any excess soil from the roots. Then place the root ball into a bucket of water and let it sit for about 2 days. After 2 days, take your tree out of the bucket and check the trunk to see if there are any new leaves or buds that have started to form. If you see new growth, then this means your tree is alive and well on its way to recovery. However, if there is no new growth, then it's likely that your tree is dead. Another good thing about this test is that if your tree survives the water test, then you can inspect the roots while you're at it. Healthy roots should be white or tan in color, whereas unhealthy roots will be black or brown. Also, healthy roots should feel firm and supple, whereas unhealthy roots will feel wilted or mushy. You may also notice that some of the roots start to float to the top of the water. This is a good sign that the tree is alive. The reason why this happens is because the roots are full of air pockets, which contain oxygen. When the tree is growing, it uses oxygen to respire, so the more oxygen in the roots, the better. Now, sometimes you may notice that there are floating roots, but there isn't any new growth. In this situation, it's likely that the tree is dead, because if the tree was alive, then you would expect to see new growth. However, if your tree passes this test, then it's time to repot it. Remember to disinfect your tools before and after working with your tree. The third method is the best way to find out if the trunk of your bonsai is dead or alive. To do this, all you need to do is take a sharp blade or pruners and make a shallow cut into the trunk of your bonsai. If the cut surface is green in color, then this means your tree is alive. The green color comes from chlorophyll, which is what gives plants their green color. Chlorophyll is only produced in living cells, so if you see green, then this means there are living cells inside the trunk of your bonsai and it's alive. However, if the cut surface is brown or black, then unfortunately the trunk of your bonsai is dead. Just like with the branches, you will need to prune off the dead sections of the trunk. Doing this will help your tree grow stronger and live longer. Sometimes you may notice that your tree has grown a new bud near the top of the trunk, but the rest of the trunk is dead. In this situation, you can keep the new bud and shape it into a new bonsai. However, if there is no new growth, then it's likely that your tree is dead. Even though some people might tell you to hammer the trunk to see if it's alive, I wouldn't recommend doing this because you could seriously damage your tree and kill it. If you've done all 3 tests and found out that your tree is dead, then don't worry because sometimes you can save dead trees. For example, if your tree has dead branches, then you can prune these off and keep the remaining branches alive and healthy. On the other hand, if your tree has a dead trunk, then it's important to prune off the dead sections so that they do and infect the rest of the tree. In some cases, you can even propagate the branches and grow new trees. Even though it can be sad when a bonsai dies, it's important to remember that this is part of the natural cycle of life. By following the steps that we've covered today, you'll be able to keep your bonsai trees healthy and happy for years to come. Now that you know how to tell if your bonsai is dead or alive, it's important to learn how to care for your bonsai. That's why I've created a free guide to show you exactly how to do this. The guide is available right now, and you can get instant access by clicking the link in the description below. Once you get the guide, go to page 37 to start learning how to care for your bonsai. It's important to remember that every bonsai is different and will require different amounts of water, fertilizer, and sunlight. So it's important to learn how to care for your particular type of bonsai. By following the tips in my free guide, you'll be able to keep your bonsai trees healthy and happy for years to come. One of the most important things to remember when caring for a bonsai is to check it regularly for pests and diseases. Pests and diseases can cause serious damage to a bonsai tree, so it's important to treat them as soon as possible. Some common bonsai pests include aphids, mealybugs, and spider mites. These pests can suck the sap out of a bonsai tree, causing it to become stunted and misshapen. They can also spread diseases that can kill the tree. There are a number of ways to treat bonsai pests. One popular method is to use insecticidal soap. This type of soap kills pests by contact, so it's important to spray it directly onto the insects. You may need to apply insecticidal soap several times to get rid of all the pests on your bonsai. Another important aspect of bonsai care is pruning. Pruning is the process of removing unwanted branches or leaves from a bonsai tree. It is an essential part of bonsai cultivation because it helps to shape the tree and keep it small. When you prune a bonsai, you're essentially telling the tree how to grow. By removing certain branches, you're encouraging the tree to grow new branches in the desired locations. Pruning also helps to keep the bonsai tree healthy by removing dead or diseased branches. Dead and diseased branches can harbor pests and diseases that can harm the rest of the tree. By removing them, you're helping to protect the overall health of the bonsai. It's important to prune bonsai trees regularly, typically every few months. This helps to maintain the shape of the tree and encourages healthy growth. In addition to pruning, you should fertilize your bonsai regularly. Fertilizers provide the tree with the nutrients it needs to grow. When you fertilize a bonsai, you're essentially providing it with food. This helps the tree stay healthy and strong. You should fertilize your bonsai every few weeks during the growing season. During the winter, you can reduce the amount of fertilizer you give the tree. It's important to use a fertilizer that is specifically made for bonsai trees. This type of fertilizer will provide the tree with the right balance of nutrients. Finally, you need to repot your bonsai regularly. Repotting is the process of putting the bonsai tree into a new container. It is an important part of bonsai cultivation because it helps to refresh the soil and keep the tree healthy. You should repot your bonsai every few years, depending on the age of the tree. Younger trees will need to be repotted more frequently than older trees. When you repot a bonsai, you're essentially giving it a new lease on life. This helps the tree stay healthy and strong. It's important to use a high-quality potting mix when repotting a bonsai. This type of mix will provide the tree with the nutrients it needs to grow. By following these tips, you'll be able to keep your bonsai trees healthy and happy for years to come. Remember to check your trees regularly for pests and diseases, prune your trees regularly, fertilize your trees regularly, and repot your trees as needed. If you have any questions about caring for your bonsai, be sure to ask a local expert or search online for more information. With proper care, your bonsai trees will thrive and bring you years of enjoyment.